Okay. There. Oh. Are you ready? So weird. Okay, you're good.
Wave. There we go.
Good.
All right, good. Just a little lag. All right, how's everyone doing over there? Is everyone at their house saying hello from their homes for this program? All right, good. Welcome. My name is Mr. Tony from the Quogue Wildlife Refuge. I just want to welcome all of you to a very special program today hosted by the Bayport Library today. So at home, does anyone have a favorite bird of prey that they absolutely love? Because you're going to get a chance to meet some of them today firsthand. And just to give you an intro to the refuge, we're over 85 years celebrating as a refuge. We have over 305 acres, over 7 miles of trails, and we are a very special place that is not a zoo. We're a special haven for animals that have been rescued with different injuries, permanent injuries, or they were owned as pets illegally. So you're going to get the backstories of our different birds of prey today, along with adaptations, habitats, what they eat, other things like that. But if you do get a chance to come visit the refuge, just letting you know we're open from sunrise to sunset. The trails are running counterclockwise. There's over 3 miles of trails. And you can say hello to the outside animals anytime you'd like. They're out there available in their cage settings. Just right now the bathrooms are not open, and we're not open to dogs at all either. So just keep that in mind. But if you do enjoy getting into nature, putting down the iPhones and I forgot sometimes, this is the place to come. So hopefully you get a chance to visit us. Are you ready to meet or talk about birds of prey and forget what those are about? We're going to do that right now with Kara. Yep.
All right, everybody. So we are live from the Quogue Wildlife Refuge. My name is Kara. I'm an educator here at the refuge. And we are really excited to bring our birds of prey out for you all to see. Before we get started, we're going to talk a little bit about birds of prey in general. They're a really amazing group of birds that are raptors. They're called raptors because they eat other animals. And these birds all have a curved beak, and they all eat other animals. So they're carnivores. They also have talons. Has anyone heard of talons before? Those really sharp feet on owls, hawks, falcons, vultures, and there's one more. Does anyone know? Eagles. So eagles, falcons, hawks, vultures, and owls are all birds of prey or raptors. So they live all across the world. You might hear one of our birds right now talking to you guys. We'll meet him in a little bit, but he's very chatty and excited to meet you all. Like Tony said, the Quogue Wildlife Refuge, we take care of permanently injured wildlife. So these are animals that for some reason or another were injured out in the wild, most of them here on Long Island. And they were rehabilitated, but unfortunately couldn't be released back into the wild because of those injuries. So then we take care of them here at the refuge for the rest of their lives. Not all of our birds are able to come out on the glove, but a bunch of them have been doing this longer than I have. They sit on the glove really well, and we'll teach you all about their history, all about what their species would do in the wild, what they eat. But feel free, if you have any questions at all, to leave them in the chat, and Tony and I will be able to see if you have any questions or comments. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. We're going to get started really shortly. Does anyone have any questions right now before we get started? I'll take a look and see if there's any down in the chat. Does anyone have a favorite bird of prey? You can leave your bird of prey maybe in the comments, or maybe one that you have seen recently. I know I've seen a lot of red-tailed hawks recently. What else have I seen? Osprey. We've seen so many osprey over the pond. All right, so here comes our first bird of prey, and we hope you guys enjoy.
Alrighty. So here's our first bird of prey. Anyone have a guess as to what species this is just by looking at him? Here we go. All right. If you said eastern screech owl, you are correct. If you said western screech owl, you might have hurt his feelings. No, just kidding. But this is a beautiful or handsome eastern screech owl. This is a male. and this is a very native or indigenous species right here to Long Island. For a bird of prey this large, or I should say this small, a lot of people confuse them for babies. But at home, what do you think? Is this a baby owl or a fully grown adult, mature screech owl? Okay, good. If you said mature screech owl, you are right. At least over 7 years old. This is fully grown, about 8 inches long, and we have them plentifully around Long Island. You'll hear them at nighttime, but usually not see them because they blend in so well with the trees around them. When you look at that plumage, the beautiful color of plumage, they blend in with those trees. What's that word, to blend in so well you can't be seen anymore? Who knows it? Let's see. All right, good. Camouflage. So they're actually born in 3 color phases. Usually we have the most popular phase is a red phase. It's a beautiful orange coloration. Then you have a brown phase and a gray phase, like this one. And they all have this cool equipped feather section right up above their head called feather tufts. And a lot of people think they're ears, but they're actually not ears or horns at all for these little ones. They're small tufts of feathers that help to blend in or camouflage. They can make themselves look bigger, or they can use those feather tufts to guide the sound waves down to their ears. So when you're looking at a bird of prey like this, they have some pretty interesting adaptations for nighttime hunting. And everyone at home knows what that nighttime hunting word is, or nighttime active word. Let's see if you know it. All right, we're listening. Good. Nocturnal. All right. So nocturnal is... they're completely nocturnal, actually. Out of all the owls here, they sit in that little owl box until the sun sets. So right around dusk, they get ready, they pop out, and they look for their food. And they have these large sets of eyes right here, you can see. Makes them really cute, right? Looks like the original Furby. But don't let that cuteness ever fool you. They're voracious hunters, and they use these sharp, hooked little beak right there. You see that? Right there for... eating and scooping their food, and they have these sharp little nails that Kara mentioned before called, who remembers that one? Talons. Very good. So their small little set of talons are very sharp and powerful. So that's what they hunt with. And raptors, or birds of prey, it means to seize. So they seize their food, and they're complete carnivores. So they eat nothing but proteins and meats. So we think of, for these little ones, mostly small rodents like moles, voles. Also, they'll eat insects at night, so moths and beetles sometimes will fall under their talons there. But mostly here at the refuge, we feed them mice. We have 2 screech owls right now at the refuge, and both of them came from a place called the Star Rescue, and they were found on the side of the road. So what we found out with little screech owls is while they're eating on the side of the road, cars going by very quickly with that sheer wind can tumble a small screech owl like this. They only weigh a very light amount, a couple of ounces. Actually it's about the equivalent of a tangerine for their weight. So that sheer wind can actually injure as that bird is tumbling and injure their head. So we tell people, don't throw your food out of the windows, right? We're creating a false food chain when we do that. So just be mindful. Our effects and the things we do go down the line, and they affect them in one way or another. We create what's called a false food chain, where mice will come closer to the side of the road, their prey, and these animals will go to eat them. So that brings us to 2 important words for the day: predator and prey. You're going to meet all predators today, and the animals that they eat are the ones praying they don't get eaten. So that's how you can remember predator versus prey. Very quickly, if you hear this bird at nighttime, you wouldn't think it's an owl, right? What do most owls say? Exactly. Who? Who are you? Who do you work for? Right? And that typical hooting sound belongs to other owls, but not this one. This one sounds more like a hoarse neigh or whinny combined with a ghost-like sound. So like a whistle sound. So it goes... If you hear that sound outside, usually they're calling each other. They're very vocal at night. And one time I got a chance to run outside my door and see it right above my picnic table. It was a beautiful red-faced screech owl. So once in a while you'll see them. You can even try to whistle back if you get good and you take Rosetta Stone for owl like we do here at the refuge. Just kidding. But most importantly is their habitat and where they come from. When you're walking around the woods and you see an old dead tree, if you make a fist, A hole about the size of your fist in a tree could be what's called a cavity nest. And that cavity nest usually exists in old trees that most people would chop down or cut down. But what we're trying to share as far as conservation goes is preserving those trees, those snags, the ones that won't hurt your home or anything else, and leave those cavity nesting trees for these screech owls. They need to nest in there and use a pre-existing hole. They're a secondary cavity nester, and then they lay their eggs and have their family. So we just want to be cautious as to the land and trees that we preserve and protect as well for these little guys to keep going. So right now they're doing well, which is a good thing. If you have any questions at all, just type them in there as we go, and we can hopefully take a chance to at least answer some of them at the end. Are they coming through on?
Yes.
Okay.
Someone said that they love saw-whet owls.
Oh, saw-whets. That's even smaller. So that's probably the smallest one on Long Island. Saw-whet is even tinier than this cute little guy.
And then Nancy says, "Who cooks for you?"
Who cooks for you? Who can tell me who belongs? My mom does. No, just kidding. My wife does now. But that's the song or the call from the barred owl. Who cooks for you? Very good. We have 2 of them here at the refuge if you'd like to visit them also. Any other questions over there? We're good to go? Cool. So you're going to get a chance to meet a very beautiful little bird that Kara's bringing over today. And it's her second debut, actually. So we're very excited. So keep an ear open, eye open for owls at night, but we're going to switch to the daytime.
Okay, so like Tony was saying, this is actually the second time that our American kestrel has been in front of the camera. So I think we're really lucky today to meet her. Very exciting, and you can see that she's bobbing her head a little bit. Let me move her over so you can see, but she's bobbing her head and looking around. Really active birds. American kestrels are actually the smallest falcon in North America. They're about the size of a mourning dove. So really small falcons, but just because they're small, just like the screech owl that you guys just met, just because they're small doesn't mean that they're not excellent hunters. So the American kestrel, they eat a variety of things in the wild. They'll eat insects mostly, worms, crickets, butterflies, moths, anything that flies that they can catch with their, even though they're little, they're super sharp talons. And they'll also eat mice, field mice. But these kestrels are actually on the decline. Their populations, although they are the most common falcon in all of North America, they're actually declining due to climate change. And she just fluffed up. Did you guys see that? That's a good sign. It means she's nice and comfortable. So they are on the decline. There are some things that we can do to help them, though. So always protecting habitats for the kestrel, wide open farm fields, places like your local parks or your just like the refuge. Those are great places for kestrels. And another thing that we can do, just like the eastern screech owl that Tony just showed you, American kestrels are actually cavity nesters. So they will utilize a hole in a tree, and they'll have to lay their eggs on the inside of a tree or in a nest box. So you can actually go online and find some really great resources for American kestrel nest boxes, eastern screech owl nest boxes. And if you're in the right habitat, put one of those boxes up and see what moves in. You might have to put a predator guard around the tree to keep squirrels out and other animals that would prefer that nest box, but they are really amazing birds. I want to show you guys up close. The American kestrel is actually one of the only birds of prey in our area where the males and the females look different. So this is pretty rare. It's actually called sexual dimorphism, where a male and a female look different. If you think of a mallard duck, the male is really bright colors, bright green. The female is very brown and dull, and that way she's able to camouflage her nest. For the American kestrel, you can see that she is a little bit duller than the male. Although we don't have a male kestrel, their heads are really a nice bright blue and kind of slaty blue. Whereas you can see she's a little bit duller and just a little bit browner. On the back of her head, if you guys can see, this is a good angle, those two dark spots on the back of her head, those are actually spots that trick other birds into thinking that her eyes are at the back of her head. So that way other smaller birds don't flock them and try to hurt them. Maybe a bigger bird would get confused by seeing those two spots on the backs of their head. Pretty impressive, right? And she's just looking all around actually right now. I'm gonna try to feed her a super worm while she's on the glove. And she really loves these little super worms. They're one of her favorite foods. So let's see if she'll eat it. Oh, that's all. Whoops. See, she kind of got it. Ah, there you go. She did. She ate a superworm. So you can see that even without her talons, she's able to use that really cool notched, curved beak to eat her prey. Does anyone have any questions about our American kestrel?
We just got one in from Cindy Brown. How many eggs do they typically lay?
Excellent question, Cindy. Thank you. So they will lay probably around 2 eggs in an average clutch. Some birds will lay more, some will lay less. And I think I have an egg for you guys to see. And if not, I'll bring it out in a little bit. Their eggs are mostly white with a little bit of brown speckling. Really, really nice and beautiful eggs. I'm going to bring that out for you guys in a little bit because I think it's not on our table. But great question. And kestrels, if you can see, they have that dark mark under their eyes and also on the sides of their heads. And it looks like she's looking at herself in the picture. I think she's bobbing her head. But males have what's called a mustache, and those are those dark marks. It can help many birds of prey, especially falcons, that come out during the daytime. Those black marks, just like a football player will put the eye black under their eye to take out a little bit of the sun's blinding effect, a kestrel has that same thing built in. So pretty amazing. The reason why we have our American kestrel is because, unfortunately, when she hatched from her egg, someone found her before she was a fledgling and illegally kept her as a pet. So now she is very much used to being around people. When she was kept illegally as someone's pet, she actually had an upper respiratory infection. And it took her a very long time to heal from that. But we think she's around a little over a year old, and we're really excited to take care of her. She actually was rehabilitated with Volunteers for Wildlife up in Locust Valley. Any other questions?
We have Allison, who would like to know how fast do they fly, and Patricia wants to know what else do they eat.
Excellent. So how fast do they fly? That's an awesome question. Kestrels are one of the few birds of prey that will actually wait and hover above a farm field or a big field to try to catch their prey. I actually don't know how fast in terms of miles per hour a kestrel can fly, but as they are in the same family as peregrine falcons, falcons are actually the fastest birds on Earth. They can fly over 200 miles an hour. So kestrels fly a little bit slower, of course, than that. They're not the fastest birds on Earth, but I would definitely give it at least 10 miles per hour.
At least, yeah. I'd say 30 to 40.
Yeah. And then what else do they eat? Lots of different bugs, grasshoppers, worms, like I just showed you guys. Maybe I'll try to give her another since she's being so great on the glove. So she just ate that one straight down. But mice also, moles and voles if a kestrel can catch them, and also bugs, of course. Excellent. Well, I'm going to bring our kestrel back and for you guys to meet another bird unless there are any questions. But American kestrels are actually one of my favorite birds. I've only seen them a couple times on Long Island, but take a look and see if you see a really fast, what looks like a mourning dove, since they are the same size as a mourning dove. A great place to look for them, like I was saying, is over farm fields, but also they like to sit on telephone wires. So you might see one perched there. All right. So thanks, guys. And if you have any questions about our kestrel, you can ask them in the comments. We can get back to them.
Alrighty, here's our next friend today we're going to meet. A very, 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 very powerful daytime predator. and hunter. Who can recognize this species? I'll show you the telltale clue in the back. A little pun intended there. All right, so you're looking at, very good, the red-tailed hawk. So this is your largest, most common hawk across Long Island here, found in many places across America. This is a male red-tailed hawk. You can't tell by coloration or that dimorphism that Kara was talking about for the kestrel, but you can tell by size for these larger birds of prey. That includes eagles and other birds of prey, owls. Usually the female can be 20% larger than the males. But this guy here is absolutely gorgeous. You look at him, he's got, I forgot the towel, 10 points. All right. He has what color eyes? Can you see his eyes up close? Look at those eyes. Beautiful brown eyes, brown back, and a very pale white chest on this guy. They can come in all different colorations as far as dark chest, dark back, very light and pale. So they go in variations of white and browns usually. You can see on his legs, just to show you what we're handling our birds with, I have what's called a gauntlet, which is a very thick leather glove to protect myself from those talons. I have what's called a leash that's connected to his two very soft leather jesses. So the two ones on his legs are like a collar, and those are called jesses, and then this leash. So, quick story behind this red-tailed hawk. He was found with a broken wing. He was hit on the side of the road, but he was found with one of a jess on his leg already. So that tells us a clue. He actually belonged to a falconer before this injury and probably had gotten away and was injured, but he was a falconer's bird, which means he was trained to hunt for rabbits and other small mammals with a person. So that's incredible. Right here in Riverhead, there is actually a falconer range where people can bring their birds of prey to hunt with, but you have to be very responsible. This isn't something for the everyday person at all. So he's used to being on the glove a little more so than others. This one right here is a full-grown. Oh, he's going to try to fly it. Let's see. Let me redirect him. There we go. Very good. A fully grown male. They can live over 20 years old. They have an amazing appetite. Being a daytime hunter means that he basically will capture anything that he can fit in those talons and go after, which encompasses, what do you think is in his diet? Chicken nuggets? Cheeseburgers? No. All right. For this guy, he loves everything from mice, rats. You go up higher in the area, so squirrels, rabbits. You'll even go up to things like chickens, so they even nickname him the chicken hawk. So they are voracious hunters. I've even heard of feral cats and things like that. You have to watch out for little dogs as well. But very powerful daytime hunters. They usually soar, and they're in the family of raptors as well, right? So as a raptor, they seize their prey, but as almost like a kite, they can fly around for hours and hours a day, conserving energy while riding on warm air currents. The same as bald eagles and a lot of other larger birds of prey. They're a broad-winged hawk. So what makes this guy very special is the fact that you can identify him very quickly by the back, right? That rusty, ruddy, orangey tail is where they get their red-tailed name from, but they don't look like that when they're immature. When they're young, they actually go through a metamorphosis, if you will. Their tails have streaks or bars across them, and their eyes are actually yellow when they're young. So when they become full-grown adults, they get the mature coloration of brown and that red-colored tail. Has anyone ever seen one flying around the neighborhood or seen one on their drive on one of the light posts up high or anything? I used to see them not as much when I was younger, but now they're everywhere. Their populations are doing a lot better. There's plenty of food for them now. They'll even eat pigeons, other birds, snakes, you name it. But a close cousin to them is the osprey. Oh, see your picture in the background? There we go. And a bird of prey like this has many close cousins. The osprey is one of the closest ones you'll see flying around. A lot of people are like, oh, it looks like a red-tailed hawk, but the osprey is one that will fly above water, eating 90% fish in their diet, about the same size, just a little larger. And what connects all of these larger birds is they were all affected by something called DDT a long time ago. DDT is a spray that they sprayed everywhere. They thought it helped kill all types of pests and everything. Oh, it did, but it also went through the food chain and also affected all types of wildlife and humans. So these birds, along with bald eagles and ospreys, were affected. Their eggshells became so thin, there we go, so thin that they would crush their own eggs when they sat on them. Luckily, in 1970s, DDT was banned, and all of these birds of prey are on the rise. So can humans make a difference at home? Small groups and one person that has a passion for something always can, and that's one of the reasons why we're seeing them on the rise. So keep that in mind. You can make a difference. If you're passionate about the creatures you're learning about today, that's something you can keep in mind. One man named Dennis Puliston, a scientist, artist, biologist, he was one of the guys responsible right here on Long Island for banning that bad chemical and helping to save these types of birds. So if you have any questions about the red-tailed hawk, let me know.
We have a question. Let me see. Cindy wants to know, what is his wingspan?
Ooh, very good. So a typical wingspan can be around 3.5 to 4 feet long. Some, for the females, like we said, are 20% larger, can go almost close to 4.5, 5 feet for some of them. He's got about a 2.5 to 3 foot wingspan when he stretches from flight feather to flight feather. So they can look typically large, but if you see one twice the size flying around, 6 feet to 8 feet, that's your bald eagle usually flying around, which we do have on Long Island back again.
We have another question. How much does he weigh? Is he full grown?
That's a great question. So he's definitely fully grown. He's probably close to 20 at least by now. In captivity, they live a little bit longer than in the wild. Well, sometimes a lot longer. And as far as his weight goes, he's a pretty solid bird. Like Mr. Tony's arm's getting a little tired now. He's between 4 to 5 pounds usually. He's got a lot of solid muscle for mass, but he has hollow bones, which does make them lighter, and he's covered in feathers. So he's not 15 or 20 pounds like you'd guess. So he's got those light bones, hollow bones, and light feathers, so about 4 to 5 pounds average. He's actually heavier than the next guy that you're going to meet. Any other questions about our bird of prey, red-tailed hawk here before we get going to our next animal?
Not yet.
All right.
Let's see, maybe we can show some of the feathers on the table.
Cool.
I can show them maybe after.
And while we're doing that, oh, there's some feathers there. Spin right around to show them that red-tailed hawk feather. There's actually another bird I'm going to talk about while we have him out, which is the bald eagle. Everyone knows their American bald eagle, which is our national bird. They're actually, for the first time in over 80 years, back nesting across Long Island. I've seen multiple pairs. They actually frequent here at the refuge all winter long. We still have them flying around, soaring. There's at least 9 different nest sites that we know of that are being worked on and laying eggs, Shelter Islands all the way to Shirley. So this is something, a phenomenon, or a nature renaissance, I call it. So not only are these creatures that haven't been around coming back, the ones that are here, their populations are soaring or doing a lot better. We're also seeing animals like coyotes and, river otter back on Long Island. So there's a lot of new wildlife. So it's best to learn all what's happening. The bald eagle specifically, there we go, is one of my favorites to have back. So keep an eye out. Know the difference between your red-tailed hawk and bald eagle and ospreys when you're out there bird watching. All right, he's going to say goodbye. He's ready to go back in.
All right, so you may have heard this bird before you saw him just now. I'm going to let Hooter talk for a little bit because I think that's what he really wants to do right now. Are you done, Hooter? Okay, so he's not done. So our great horned owl, this is our great horned owl. His name is Hooter. His name is Hooter, and I'm sure you can imagine why why he's named that. So our great horned owl Hooter chats a lot. But I love listening to him talk, so and I think he knows it. So great horned owls are really amazing birds of prey. And very similar to the birds that we just met before, right? We met our screech owl, our American kestrel, our great horned owl and red-tailed hawk, all of those birds are birds of prey, predator birds that are in the same family but have very different adaptations that allow them to hunt. So if you take a look at Hooter, can anyone take a guess maybe or put in our comments, can you think of an adaptation that would allow our great horned owl to hunt at night? Do you see anything on his body that would allow him to outcompete other birds? Maybe I'll let Hooter talk for a minute just while we wait to see if any questions or comments come in for that.
Flight.
Silent flight. Excellent job.
That's Sue.
Thank you, Sue. Hooter says thank you too. So silent flight, that is an amazing adaptation. And Hooter just flapped his wings just to get a little bit more comfortable and sit on the glove. But silent flight for owls, they're the only birds of prey that have silent flight. And that's because of all of their beautiful feathers. They're, number one, very soft. And number two, very lightweight. And on the leading edge of their wing feathers, right here, it's hard for the camera to pick it up, but their feather is actually spread out like this, instead of a normal feather that's closed, and it buffers the air and allows them to fly silently through the forest. Now, do owls have silent flight because their prey has really good hearing? What do you guys think? Right? Scientists for a long time couldn't figure out if, number one, it's to compete with their prey because their prey have such great hearing, or if it's just to allow them to hunt better. So I think it's a little bit of both. And these owls can fly really silently through the forest to find their prey. Their prey is actually lots of different things. They can eat small rodents like mice and rats. They can also eat other birds. They can eat bats. They can eat skunks and possums and small raccoons. So if they're eating skunks, do you guys think they have a good sense of smell? No, right? Owls, and especially the great horned owl, that's the one sense that they don't rely on. They don't rely on their sense of smell. So these guys rely more on their eyesight and their hearing. So their eyesight is amazing. And an owl like Hooter, if we were great horned owls, we would have the eyes that are the size of oranges or grapefruits in our head. So they have really excellent vision. Just like us, actually their eyes face forward, and that's called binocular vision. That's something that you're not going to see on a hawk on the red-tailed hawk that we just met. So the binocular vision allows them to see in 3D. Just like us. So it allows them to pinpoint things in the forest, those really big pupils that you can see right now for Hooter. That will allow any available light in the forest, like moonlight and maybe at dusk right when they come out, that will help him hunt as well. If you guys noticed, when Hooter looks at the camera, when he blinks his eyes, you might see this grayish bar go across his eye and then come back. Let's see if we can get that on camera. When he blinks, look for it right before he blinks. That's actually a third eyelid, and it will help protect his eyes and many predators' eyes. That nictitating membrane, it's called. It protects their eyes while they're hunting. But for birds that are flying through the air, it actually acts like a windshield wiper. So when they're flying, their eyes don't get dry. They're able to use the third eyelid that they can kind of see through, which is pretty impressive. Great horned owls, great white sharks have the same third eyelid to protect them. A lot of predators have that. So if you see Hooter's body, if you look at his right here, these are his ear tufts. They're just feathers that stick up straight from his head. And these are not his ears. They are just feathers that give them the name great horned owl. And those feathers make him look bigger. They make him look more impressive. And they also scare other animals away. but his ears are underneath these feathers next to his eyes, whoops, along that black ring of feathers right here. So his ears are underneath the feathers. One is actually higher on his head and one is a little bit lower. Their ears are banana shaped, just little slits in the side of their head that allow them to hear. If you guys at home take your thumb, and your index finger, rub them together and listen for the noise that your fingers make. That tiny little noise. An owl can hear that across a basketball court. So they have amazing hearing, and that will allow them to hunt as well. The owl with the best hearing is the barn owl. And those are the owls with a heart-shaped face. They have a white belly and a tan back. They have the best hearing out of any animal in the whole world ever tested. They can hunt in complete darkness. Pretty amazing. Oh, we have some questions. All right, let's see. Hooter will actually keep talking, I think, the whole time.
So Tony Ann said there's 2 great horned owls in their backyard that hoot to each other. Why?
Tony Ann, that's a great question. Why do owls hoot to each other? So they will hoot back and forth, especially during the breeding season. And if you hear an owl that has a deeper hoot, like Hooter, that means it's a male. If you hear one making the same call with right after the male calls with a slightly higher pitch, that would be the female owl. And usually that's in the breeding season when they're setting up a nest and having their babies. But great horned owls, as you can see, Hooter's calling even when it's not the breeding season for these guys. And sometimes they'll call at night to set up their territory to keep other great horned owls away. For Hooter, he actually talks because he is imprinted on people. And similar to the American kestrel story, Hooter unfortunately was taken from the wild when he was a baby, when he was an owlet. And unfortunately, he is imprinted or thinks that basically he's a person. He doesn't know how to be a wild great horned owl. And that's why we take care of him at the refuge. Because unfortunately, he wasn't raised by his own parents for long enough to survive in the wild on his own. And Hooter is actually around 20 years old. So he's getting up there, but great horned owls can live up to 50 in captivity. So amazingly long-lived birds. Any other questions?
Wendy wants to know, do they go after fish or eels at all?
Great question, Wendy. Yeah, if they go after fish or eels, great horned owls typically will go after rodents, rabbits, different types of small mammals. But I wouldn't be surprised if an owl like this guy, if there was a fish washed up on shore or maybe an eel, that they would take advantage of that situation. But you won't see this owl hunting over water. And this guy, if you can see, I want to move him a little bit closer. His feathers are really soft and very lightweight. If he gets wet, he actually can't fly. So these guys don't like to get wet. They'll take a bath every once in a while, but unlike ospreys, they can't dive into the water.
Cindy wants to know why his feet look fuzzy.
Cindy, that's a great question. Why do his feet look fuzzy? And that's because they are covered in feathers. They look very fuzzy because the great horned owl does not migrate south for the winter. So they stay on Long Island and in the cold New England states. I think we're all happy that that's behind us right now, right? But they stay here all winter. And because of that, great horned owls have built-in Ugg boots, or they have built-in snowshoes. So all of those feathers keep him nice and warm, just like his body feathers do. A great horned owl can actually withstand temperatures up to negative 40 degrees. So they can really withstand the cold months in the winter time. If you take a look at my finger, as it disappears until I touch his body, can you guys see how much my finger just disappeared until I touch his body? So all of those feathers keep an owl, other birds, super warm. They're very lightweight, but it's like wearing a down comforter or a down jacket. And that might lead us, maybe I'll leave this, I'll take another question, but does anyone have a guess for how heavy our great horned owl is in pounds? So I'll take another question, and if anyone has a guess, you can put it in the comments while we wait.
Carrie wants to know, how do you get these birds attached to the glove? Is it dappled?
Oh, great question. How do we get them? yeah. How do we get them to sit on the glove like this? And they are free to flap their wings. If you can see, actually, these right here are called jesses. And it's just made out of rope. It goes right on his anklets. So we're able to take this off of Hooter when he's going back into his enclosure. But after a lot of years and certain training, certain birds can't be used on the glove for teaching. Others, like Hooter, are very much trained to be on the glove and to step up onto the glove. So really, he stays very still all on his own. And all I have to do is also stay still and hold on to these jesses. Attached to the jesses is a leash that's just like a second point of contact to keep him nice and safe. But when he goes back into his enclosure, we take all of that off and he's free to fly or to walk around all on his own.
Cool. We have some guesses for the weights. But
Oh,
we also have
good.
another question we can answer along the way.
Okay.
Lisa says 50 pounds. Allison said 30 pounds. Mickey said 7 pounds. Nancy said 10 pounds. And Nancy also wanted to know how early do you nest.
Great. Wow, these are great guesses for the weights. I love it. Before we move on to how heavy he actually is, great horned owls will nest in January and February. They're actually our earliest nesters on Long Island. So they're building a nest in January, February, March. Their young or their babies are already fledged from the nest right now, mostly. So great horned owls are the earliest nesters. And that's actually pretty advantageous, right? They're covered in these warm feathers. They're able to have their babies early before other bigger birds are competing with them for nests. These great horned owls will take over a crow nest, a hawk nest, but they do have a typical nest. They don't go onto the inside of a tree. So that's awesome. Are we ready to reveal how heavy our great horned owl is?
Yep. We have Shira said 4 pounds, Ken said 10 pounds, and Karen said 5 pounds. Who's the winner?
Nice. Great guesses, guys. So our great horned owl is covered in these feathers, has hollow bones, and actually weighs 2.4 pounds. I know Hooter was talking over me for a second. I'll say it again. 2.5 pounds.
Shira was the closest.
Good job, Shira. Very good job. You're our winner for today on the guess. So very lightweight birds, even though they're nice and large. If you see, Hooter's probably the size of a small house cat. But because of all of those adaptations, they are so lightweight, 2.5 pounds. And Hooter is a male. Like we were saying before, usually the males are smaller than the females for birds of prey and raptors. So a great horned owl that's a female would weigh a little bit more than a male like Hooter. And I want to show you guys the back of his feathers. He would camouflage perfectly with just a oak pine forest. They are called tigers of the woods because they get the nickname tigers of the forest. They're great predators, just like a tiger is, and they have those orange stripes on the back of their tail. Another reason why they're called tigers of the forest. I do want to show you guys something as well. It's actually a great horned owl skull. So if you take a look at this skull right here, sorry it's a little bright, you can see that orange ring right here is actually called an orbital ring, and it holds the eye in place. That's why you may have noticed that our great horned owl's eyes are always facing forward and they never move up or down or side to side. So great horned owls and all owls have an orbital ring that holds their eye in place facing forward. So they can make up for not moving their eyes by turning their necks around. So you might have seen Hooter doing that already. How far can an owl turn their neck? They can turn their neck 270 degrees out of 360. For humans, that's a lot more than us. We can only turn our head from side to side or in a straight line 180 degrees. So owls can't turn their heads all the way around, but they can turn it most of the way, almost 3/4 of a circle, 270 degrees. And that's because they have extra bones in their neck, bones called vertebrae, whereas humans only have 7 vertebrae. Owls have 14 vertebrae. So that helps them turn their necks around. And that will help them, of course, listen and find their prey and look and find their prey as well. All right. Any other questions?
Let's see, a lot of wows. What? Thought
Wow.
it was heavier, and there was an owl hooting outside my window that sounded like a great horned owl, Shira.
That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I love to hear these owls. You'll hear them if you listen at night in your backyard's parks. They are also one of our most common owls on Long Island. We're really lucky to have them all over Long Island. They need food, water, shelter, plenty of things for them to eat here. One thing that you can do to help great horned owls, though, and almost all birds of prey, is number one, not polluting onto the side of the road where these guys sometimes hunt, driving nice and slowly, protecting their habitat, but also not using rodenticides and mice and rat poison. Almost 70% of all owls have the rodenticides that people use in their garages and basements and sheds in their system, and those poisons can build up to a toxic level. So it's important not to use rodenticides because these owls eat mice and rats, especially ones that they might find that have already been killed by a poison. So that's a really important way to help them. Another way is to always keep them wild. Never keep a wild animal as a pet. It is illegal, and we want to keep all of these species out in the wild where they're meant to be. Another way is to take down soccer nets at night. We've seen lots of pictures of owls getting stuck in soccer nets because they can't see the fine lines on the net. So that's one thing. If you happen to have a soccer net in your backyard, just take them down overnight or flip them down so an owl can't get stuck in them. Yeah. Another thing that we didn't talk about, which today none of our owls regurgitated a pellet at our program, but sometimes that happens. Owls regurgitate a pellet, and all birds of prey actually will regurgitate a pellet around 12 hours after they eat. So for these birds, they actually will eat a mouse, sometimes whole, or they'll eat maybe a rat. They'll get the fur and the bones inside of their body, and they can't digest it, so they regurgitate a pellet. Has anyone found a pellet in their backyard or maybe on a hike?
They spit up fur and bones on my car, he said.
Somebody's, oh wow, on your car. That's pretty crazy. That's pretty cool. I'd love to find one on my car. But owls regurgitate a pellet. That's an awesome way for scientists to learn what they're eating, what our habitats are providing them with. But they're super cool. We do a program for owl dissections, and you can find lots of things in an owl pellet. And these great horned owls, their pellets are probably around 2 inches large, but smaller species the pellets get smaller. So really cool. Maybe we can show you guys a pellet after we put our great horned owl away. All right. Well, thank you all. I'm going to bring Hooter away. He did not stop talking the whole time. I think that's a record. Let me let him say goodbye.
Give a little hand raise there.
Hooter. All right, Hooter says goodbye.
That was great. Really good job. He's talking the whole time. Okay, well, I hope everyone had a great time learning about our birds of prey and owls today. If you have any other questions, you can feel free to contact us and ask us more questions. We want to leave you again with some great advice as far as things you can do to help. What Kara mentioned was dead on and 100% the right things to do. I've seen some videos of them rescuing owls and deer out of those nets, so that was a great touch. So ways you can continue to help: stay educated, right? Learn more on your own as well. Have the kids read books. You do some research. Watch some cool Nova specialists. I saw a beautiful one on eagles last night. And then share that information with others so everyone is educated in the right manner. One thing I've noticed is during this time it's springtime, right? So a lot of the birds and birds of prey, they're having their nests, they're having their fledglings come out of the nest at a certain point. One thing we could do to help is if we see a small animal like that or bird, it's not necessarily our right to go and take that bird and say, oh, it's injured, I'm going to take it in my house and keep it. The right thing to do is call a rescue center. We have a wonderful one right in Hampton Bays. There's ones across Long Island. And get the right help for those animals. You don't want to imprint an animal at all, or you'd want to do the right thing and make sure they get released at some point. Let's see, do we have that little owl pellet? So here's a small one, probably from a screech owl for that one. Little tiny owl pellet. That one looked like it had vanilla flavored rodents that night. So they have those compressed fur and bones in there. But then if you're walking, you might see ones that are brown. And I always tell the kids they're not chicken nuggets. Don't eat them. Leave them on the ground. And it's a cool science study. And Kara has something else to show you there.
All right. And this is the American kestrel egg. So you can see it's probably, well, it's a bit smaller than a golf ball. And it has these brown speckles on it. Unfortunately, ours is broken. But that's an American kestrel egg. All right. One question that I did see in the comments was if great horned owls compete with other nocturnal predators. That's a really great question, and they do for sure, but they're at the top of the food chain on our nocturnal animal predator list. So they're really at the top of the food chain. They compete with other great horned owls, but I would say that they're one of the best nocturnal predators. During the daytime, the animal that's equivalent to the great horned owl is the red-tailed hawk. So red-taileds will also compete, but since they're out at different times of the day, that is why we don't see them at the same times, right? All right. Oh, that's a great thing.
That's the last thing. Yeah. Last thing, just wanted to share them with you is the feathers. Even though all these birds of prey have amazing and beautiful feathers, it's actually illegal to possess any of them at your house. So even if you find them on the ground, the best thing to do is either leave them there, but you don't want to have them in your home at all. They're protected by the Migratory Bird Act. So they just don't want animals like this being hurt for their feathers or harvested for feathers at all. So that's why every feather is protected. So if you do see them, just let people know you're not supposed to keep them as an item in your home at all. They're absolutely beautiful. A lot of them look like tiger stripes, striations that help them to camouflage. So just keep that in mind and teach other people that lesson as they go along.
And we had another awesome question, and thank you, Allison. We're glad you enjoyed the program, and Alba too. Another question from Sue: are any raptors, particularly the small ones like screech owls and kestrels, prey for other raptors?
That's a good question.
Yeah, great question, and they are. So the smaller raptors can be prey for the larger ones. Great horned owls are actually known to hunt other great horned owls in their territory, so it wouldn't be a far stretch to say that they will also hunt screech owls. Kestrels would be in danger from bigger, faster raptors, but like we were talking about, they definitely have some great adaptations to allow them to hide. Cavity nesting is one of them. Camouflaging and just being smaller and occupying another niche in the environment, hunting different things will allow them to escape from those bigger birds. And the smaller birds will usually hunt on a different level in the sky than other big ones. Like you'll see red-tailed hawks very high up in the sky, but a kestrel will usually hunt and hover above the ground. Those are awesome questions. Let me see if there's any more. What do you do if you find a feather? Excellent. If you find a feather, what we normally recommend is just leave it where you find it. One thing that you can do is take a picture, though, if you want to identify what it is. For sure, that's really fun to do. I like doing that myself. But leaving them where you find them is always best, because actually other birds will use them sometimes to build their nests. So that's really cool. And let me see, what birds were those feathers from? I want to show you guys which ones they were from. Let me see. So our smaller one this is a peregrine falcon. a red-tailed hawk, a barred owl, a peregrine falcon. Ooh, I'm getting my mirrors. And then this guy was a great horned owl, a bald eagle, and a screech owl. So these are all birds that we have at the refuge, and because we're permitted to have the feathers, we're just able to teach with them. So that is what we do. Let me see. Well, we want to thank you all for tuning in, and thank you so much for asking those great questions. I see Mike said Hooter was the star.
Hooter was
he is the star. Absolutely, he knows he's the star. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. The Quogue Wildlife Refuge has been around since 1934, and really it's because of all the people who come here and hike and love our animals. So we really appreciate your support. You can learn more about the Quogue Wildlife Refuge on our website. Our trails are open right now, but the Nature Center and the restroom are closed. But we're so happy to teach with our animals virtually. It's definitely been a learning experience for all of us. I think our birds really like it though.
Yes.
Right? It's nice and quiet in here. Yeah, less pressure. But again, thank you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat, and we can actually go back and answer them. Thank you, Bayport-Blue Point Library, and thank you all so much. Have a great night.
Good night.